In tonight's Tax Insider, a fiscal to-do list for the Pentagon. Military spending and reform have been hot-button issues on the campaign trail this year. The United States spends more on defense than any other nation. How can we get the best bang for the buck? Joining me with some answers is Ryan Alexander, president of the non-partisan Taxpayers for Common Sense. Ryan, you just published a Leap Day list in U.S. News and World Report. It includes 9 recommendations for the Pentagon. Let's start at the bottom. You want President Obama to pass an executive order that closes military installations in the U.S. Why?
Well, we think the Pentagon and of course the President have the authority to take more aggressive action than they have in terms of just looking at what we have that we don't need anymore. Across the board, as a country, we have kind of competing desires. One, to reduce the size of government, to spend less money at the government, but also new demands. Make sure we're safe from terrorism. Make sure that we get to build as many roads as we need to do. And the thing that doesn't happen is look at what we don't need anymore. And one area where we can do that is for the Pentagon to look at the bases that they don't need anymore and make sure that they shift resources so they can invest money where they need to. We're not going to do another BRAC, or Base Realignment and Closure Commission. Those are very politically touchy things, and this is not a moment of political courage. Sure. We think the Pentagon can kind of identify its priorities and needs and start taking action on those without waiting for Congress.
Yeah, you're right about that. Now, next up, reject modernizing all 3 legs of the nuclear triad. What does that mean? So the nuclear triad, we have this theory in this country that we need land, sea, and air-based nuclear weapons, and we think that that's an outdated idea, that we don't need missiles in silos in remote places. That's not something that's keeping us safe from terrorism. That's not addressing today's threats. We're not saying that we have no nuclear weapons. We're just saying we need to be smart about this, and we should not reinvest in something that is duplicative and not really addressing today's security needs. So we think you can save a lot of money at that. They're gearing up to modernize the entire nuclear triad, as opposed to saying, let's figure out how to right-size this and make sure that we have the deterrent we need without having excess capacity. Now, Ryan, a few of your recommendations involve the Overseas Contingency Operations Account. How would your Leap Day list impact OCO?
So what we think that should happen with OCO is, as a starting point, and it's number 1 on our list, is that the Pentagon needs to kind of wean itself off this idea. This account, the OCO account, has become a slush fund that allows them to do things that they're having a hard time getting into the base budget because of the Budget Control Act and other limits on Pentagon spending. It's one of those things that we just can't continue to rely on. Of course we need to spend money to keep the country safe, and of course the Pentagon should understand its budget. But having this idea of an overseas contingency account that you can use to do things that are not contingent, and some of them not overseas, is introducing a lack of discipline into the military budget process that we just can't tolerate long term.
Now, it's tough to talk about reforming Pentagon spending without mentioning the F-35 program. I call it the plane that ate the Pentagon.
Right.
Where does that fall on your list?
I think it's number 2. The F-35 is one of those things where this is just, it's so frustrating to see that the Air Force keeps putting all of its eggs into the F-35 basket for its aircraft acquisition budget. The future of warfare is probably not solely just manned aircraft. We need to be making sure that the Air Force is really looking at what it needs. The F-35 seems like this pie-in-the-sky fantastic plane that's unbelievably expensive and over budget and late. So for the Air Force to continue to really keep putting money into this program is really troubling.
Before you go, let's talk about some language here. You want to eliminate the phrase "spread the pain" from DOD's vocabulary. Explain that.
So there's a culture in DOD where both the resources and the cuts are spread equally across the services. So the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy and Marines, if there's a cut or if there's a limitation based on the Budget Control Act, that should be shared equally by the 3 services. But that's not strategic. That's like saying I have 3 children and I need to treat them equally. That's not what the services are. We need to think strategically about where we need to make our best investments and not just ask everybody to take a little bit of a haircut just because the barber's in town. We need to think where those resources need to go and make sure that we're eliminating wasteful weapon systems, wasteful programs altogether, not just giving them cuts, and investing in the programs that do the most for us.
Good point, and good luck. Ryan Alexander, president of Taxpayers for Common Sense. See you next time, Ryan.
Thanks.